Welcome to Photo Eye Conversations. Our guest today is photographer Patty Carroll. I'm Photo Eye's gallery director, Ann Kelly. Patty, where are you today?
I am in my studio in Kansas City,
Well,
Missouri.
Thank you for joining us. It looks like you've got some fun things behind you in the studio there.
Yeah, this is actually a little, I don't know if I can see it. It's just a little installation that I've been doing on the walls. And I've been doing some installations in exhibitions as well as the photographs that are like what might be in a home of some woman. So I just hang out and put stuff around and and they make it sometimes into exhibitions.
So you'll have the framed work and then you'll have installation objects within. Yeah. Well, that's very cool. So we're here today to talk about Patty's work and her brand new book. I've got a copy right here. Title might be backwards. I'm not sure.
No, it's good.
It's good? Okay, that's just in my camera. And you've published a few books over the years.
Yes, I have. But actually, when you sent me the thing, you said, oh, well, I did self-publish some things, which was basically like little catalogs like this, you know, little mag cloud catalog. Mm-hmm. But those were just like things to like give away or to show people. The truth is that I have several other books that have been published by other publishers before I got to this.
The Daylight book.
The Daylight book I don't have with me, but yes, the Daylight book is the first iteration of the series of Anonymous Women. Before that, though, I did a book called The World of Elvis Tribute Artists. And so it was like this crazy little book of Elvis's and little quotes by them. And that was published actually by my kind of agent. He did it kind of on his own. The first book I did, though, was this one called Spirited Visions, which were photographs of Chicago artists as if they were in their own work. So this was my photograph, and then this would be a picture of what the artist did. And then there was an essay by Jim Yud. And this was in the early 90s, and the University of Illinois published it. And then I did a hot dog book, which was called Man Bites Dog. and this was Roman and Altamira Press, which was Roman and Littlefield. And this was more of a lot of text, but also a lot of photographs of hot dog stands, etc. And I did this with a food historian, Bruce Craig. So actually, those were not monographs. They were more like projects in a way. But the Anonymous Women, the two books, both Daylight and the new one by Ain't Bad, are really monographs of this series.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful book. Congratulations on it. Oh. And so we've started a new program at Photo Eye that's kind of fun, where we pair new books with small prints. And so we've come up with a pairing like that for Patty's new book. So the book, I believe, is $40, and it's a very small edition. It's an edition of 5, right?
Yeah.
So for $130, you can get the book with a print that's smaller than her normal prints, but it's still a pretty good size. It's 7 by 7 inches on 8-inch paper.
Right.
And we'll show you that image shortly. You've got the print there. It's a little hard to see it through.
I can't. I did. Yeah. I'll show you a picture of it. Actually, if you want me to screen share it, I can show you right now.
Sure. Yeah. Let's let's take a look. And so you've, oh yeah,
That's it.
that one's good. Remind me what the title of that one is again?
It's called Shadow of Her Former Self.
So edition of 5, $130, and you get the book.
And you get the book.
And signed and numbered and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. Printed on Hana mule paper.
Good opportunity to collect at a lower price point than what just a standard print would be. So it's a fun collection, and we recently did something similar with Mark Klett and Michael Kenna. So you can find some of those other small prints on our website, or if you're interested, you can email me directly and I can point you towards those. A lot of times they sell out pretty quickly, and especially when it's an edition of 5, as you can imagine. I think those will sell very quickly.
Good. I hope so.
So, how did you end up publishing this book with Ain't Bad? Did you submit, or did they find your work?
Well, it's very interesting. They did a little competition. And the competition was, first prize was a book, and second prize was some money towards a book, and third prize was something like that. And they said, don't apply unless you have at least 60 images and you're ready to go and you've got, you know, words, etc. And I thought, and I had just been starting to think about doing a book of this series when I saw this, and I was like, I have all those things. I think I'll apply for this. and so I did, and I won it basically. So that was a really great thing, because the book is, well, it's 9 by 9, and there's 56 pictures, I think, in it. And I had someone wrote a wonderful essay, Bruce Thorne, about my work that had been in an exhibition. And so the whole thing just kind of magically came together very quickly. And they published it right before the lockdown. So this book has not been seen by anyone, basically, because we kind of put it on a little launch at SPE, which was in Houston, like the day before everything, or 3 days, I don't know, a week before everything.
Right before Photo Fest, and I think
Yes.
they got a week and a half into Photo Fest, if even.
Maybe.
The entire month, so.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of a brand new book because of that. Anyway.
Absolutely. So I've known you for a while. We originally met at Review Santa Fe, but something I realized I don't know is how you got into photography to begin with. What was, you know, everybody's got that little story. It was the guy across the street had a camera, or the uncle, or the dad. And so I'm just curious what your photo story is.
A couple of things. When I was growing up, my family was owned suburban newspapers. And so there was always a photographer around. I mean, and my father was a politician. So this photographer was always photographing him, shaking hands with some other dignitary, you know, it was just ridiculous. So I never considered photography as something interesting. And after I, you know, went to college, my father said, oh, come and work at the paper and you can take pictures for us. And I was like, no. But anyway, I ended up I did take my first photography course in my senior year. I was in graphic design, and you had to take photography. And Art Sinsabal was our teacher, and he made us use a 4x5 for our first camera. And yeah, and so we learned, you know, kind of the hard way in a way, but it was really cool. And so we had to learn to develop the film, you know, and so we had little rooms and you could go in and develop the film. Well, he made us go in with another person so that we wouldn't get confused and lost and start, you know, screaming or crying or something. And so I go in with this guy, and it turns out, and I kind of had a crush on him. Well, it turns out he had a real crush on me. So he kissed me in the darkroom developing this film. And that kind of really set me to knowing that, you know, photography is not so bad after all.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was my boyfriend for several years. But anyway, the truth is that I just really fell in love with it. And
you went into graphic design school not even considering that. It was just a prerequisite. And
exactly, you had to take photography. And so then what happened was I kind of abandoned I abandoned graphic design and went to graduate school in photography at IIT. So, and that was it. And I thought, and of course, like typical, you know, I waitressed my way through graduate school. And I thought, well, I'll just waitress the rest of my life, and I'll just photograph. I don't care. And of course, a month after I graduated, I was in Greece teaching photography. And so then I taught photography for like, you know, 40 years. So I'm done now.
It must have had an influence on your photographic practice, would you say?
I think so. I think it did. Always you learn from students. They're always much more interesting than what you put out in the world, you know. But and it was really interesting teaching because there were so many ideas. What happens though after so many years is you start seeing the same ideas come up with different people, and when I started seeing that, I knew it was time for me to just go in the studio and make my own pictures and not go through that routine of, you know, everyone else's discovery. I wanted to have my own discovery, so that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a balance. So
yeah, it is. It's a real balance.
Now you're just making your own work, and you never actually went into graphic design, did you? Officially?
I worked in it for a few years, but it was, you know, and I would do side jobs and stuff, but
well, I see it in your photography. I mean, not in a literal sense, but there's, I think without that background, your work would definitely not be what it is.
I totally agree. I think that I'm really conscious of composition, color, shapes, you know, all of those things that are like basic design stuff that I will never give up. And since I love color so much, I usually try and integrate it as much as I can, of course. But it's really based on that graphic design experience. So I highly recommend people take design courses, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything kind of influences the next thing, and adding those extra skills, it's just going to bring something new to the practice, seems to me. So when we first met at Review Santa Fe, I believe you were showing your project Anonymous Women, which was the book that was published eventually by Daylight. And in that body of work, I mean, it seems to me that it kind of led up to the current work, or rather that they're connected. And in that series, you were showing women in interior spaces, but they were draped in fabric. And later on, you started to add a lot of other household elements and just other possessions and details. So it seems like it kind of grew out of that original project. Do you see it that way?
Yes, totally. Mm-hmm. Actually, the whole thing started when we lived in England. Mm-hmm. We lived in London for 4 years, and it was a very disconcerting time for me. And
you were there for 5 years? Is that right?
A little over 4, but somewhere around 4 to 5. Yeah. And so everyone knew me through my husband, and it was very disconcerting. I just kept, was like, no, I'm not just Mrs. Jones. I'm this other person. Anyway, and it started me thinking about myself as a woman and how women are considered in their lives. And so I started a series that was the original Anonymous Woman, and it was just a figure, just a head from about here up. And we kind of painted her extra white, and then I put objects on top of her head, so you obscured her identity. So that was the beginning of it. And then when we came back to the States, I put the figure behind the drapery, so it was a full figure and not just a bust, basically. And that just kept continuing on and on. And then we, as it went on, I wanted to add props, you know, household objects, as you said. And so it started out with like maybe one or two things. And then I thought, well, you know, everybody I know has these collections of things, and they have all their favorite stuff, and they have, you know, some women love all their kitchen things, and some women love their art collections, and some women have a collection of dolls, and, you know, who knows. But anyway, so that's how the whole thing kept getting bigger and bigger. And then the project grew into a more narrative, you know, idea rather than just an image of a figure.
And you had mentioned somewhere that, well, did you go to Catholic school?
Yes, I did.
You had, your teachers were nuns for.
They were, yes, yes.
And I don't know anybody who's been to Catholic school, and that, well, okay, my parents did, and they had teachers as nuns, and I mean, they have a rap for being pretty tough on the students. They're they will tell you, right?
Yes, that's true.
And then just kind of the attire, it kind of made me wonder if that was a partial influence, or if it played into.
I think it played a big part, because when I was thinking about the drapery series, I really was kind of in the back of my mind were these nuns, because the only way you knew them was through what they were wearing. And when a nun takes the habit, she basically gives up her old life and her old identity and takes on a new name. And she's always wearing that habit. Unlike, say, a priest who will put on priest's robes to say mass or, you know, perform some rite, the nuns live in them. And so it becomes a whole issue of identity where they change into this thing. And the only way you know them, you on the outside, is through this amount of cloth, basically. But also as a, it obscures them. You know, you don't know, do they have hair? You know, you know, all kinds of things. So yes, I think it had a huge influence on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that individual personality. And in fact, generations back, I've actually have quite a few nuns in my family, great aunts, and I've got some first aunts who have told these stories as children, that they were terrified that they thought they were going to be forced to become nuns, or, you know, just as young children, they didn't quite understood that it was a choice. And they thought, oh, at one point they were going to have to stop being who they were specifically and go join the convent. And that was just what was going to happen. So I thought that was kind of a strange story.
Yeah.
You could see how that, if you see all the other family members, how that might be a childhood fear or something. Easily,
yes. But you know, the habit is also a very, it's based on a real ancient costume. And like women in the Middle East that wear burqas and, you know, other clothing that's covering them, is kind of based on that same, you know, ancient time. Mm-hmm. If you think about it. And so, I mean, because a lot of people used to say, well, what does this have to do with the burqa? And I'm like, Well, not as much as nuns, but the truth is they kind of come from the same historical place, except they, you know, went in different directions. So it's also about modesty. You know, some of it is also like when I was making those drapery pictures, I was really tired of women performing for the camera and showing all parts of their bodies. And it seemed like there was so much of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just seemed like it was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, especially in fashion and, you know, advertising and commercial things, as well as a lot of my students were always like, you know, showing as much as they possibly could. And there wasn't anything wrong with it. It was just that I was like, I want to do something the opposite of this. This is making me crazy. So,
well, and then that perception of that everybody's supposed to look like the women in the fashion ads.
right,
Size 0 and 8 feet tall and just, yeah.
And then the other thing about that whole thing was that I was interested in types of women rather than specific people, you know, rather than showing the face and it being specifically about one person. When you cover the face or you cover the body, then it's because it's about a kind of person that you might relate to depending on the accoutrements that's around her. So that's another like sidelight of it.
Yeah. Well, do you want to show some of these pictures that we were talking about?
The pictures that I pulled up are actually from this.
Mostly the new work, right?
Yeah, this is the new work. I can show you, though, a couple of the videos from the drapery series.
Oh, yeah. So Patty also makes these amazing videos. So if you're kind of, I mean, maybe they're not exactly tied into the process, but it's kind of an eye into kind of behind the scenes. And the videos are their own things, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, what happened was, oops, wait a minute. What happened was, I was making these pictures and they were very serious and they felt very kind of heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also right at around that same time that I was thinking about it, about this heaviness issue, and it needed some levity, was Photoshop came out with video editing. Mm. And so I was like, I really need to like learn this. And so it kind of came together. And so I started making these really short videos of women trying to do things at home that didn't really necessarily work out very well. Anyway, so let me show you a couple of those. And if I did share screen.
So the other thing that's interesting about your work is it's like you've taken the genre of still life, but they're not really still lifes, particularly in the case of the videos. They're kind of this intersection between still lifes and narratives, really open-ended.
Yeah, exactly. They're kind of in between.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Here is one of the videos.
I took my troubles down to Madame Rue. You know that gypsy with the gold cap too. She's got a bag down her bed broken wine, selling little bottles of love potion number 9.
The video part is playing. You can see the image and you can hear the music, but it wasn't really as animated as the other ones.
Okay.
I feel like the video wasn't playing.
Really, it was playing.
Unless that one's really subtle.
Could have been. Let's try this one.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see what this one does.
Technology.
Yeah. Let's let's try this guy.
That's working.
That working?
Yes.
It's not giving, do you hear sound
I
though?
don't hear the sound, but it is playing.
I don't hear the sound either. Let's try a different one. Hold on a minute.
We're getting a selection of these.
Right. Thank God I pulled up a couple of them.
Yeah. And we'll include links to some of these.
That's a good, there's a compilation link. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's try
But
this.
we at least got the idea of the imagery
Right.
of the draped woman.
Alone in the dark.
Yes.
Now you come along and you light up my life.
The thing about that video
Mm-hmm.
is that it was the first one, and I edited this down. And my niece was, I said, get behind the drape there and turn on this lamp. And because she couldn't see what she was doing, she kept trying and trying and trying to turn it on. And I was like, this will never work. And then I realized, of course, this is the point of the whole thing. So and that's why they were sort of hilariously stupid and funny. But anyway, so I edited it down so that she actually turned it on. But if you saw the whole thing, it was like, you know, her hand going all over the place trying to find it.
That's the outtake.
Yeah.
That's fun. And they all have really fun titles as well, I was noticing.
I try and do that with my titles. I try and use puns or something that, I don't know.
So that's another thing I was noticing about the work. I mean, if you look at the title of the current series and book, it's Domestic Demise. And obviously the word demise doesn't really have a lot of positive connotations to it, but the work is still really playful and fun. So
Yeah.
I love that about it, that you're kind of mixing all of these various aspects, and it really works.
Thanks. Well, what I'm trying to do, especially with this later series, is add more humor to it too. First of all, a lot of women say to me, well, I'm that one, or someone else will say, oh, I'm that one, because they're all absurd situations that are fictional, but everybody has, and it's slightly over the top, but usually people can relate to some part of the image.
Right.
And so so I want them to be kind of, you know, funny.
Which is interesting because you can't see the women at all. So it's completely based upon the interiors and possessions and other details. So
Right.
kind of relates back to you're talking about how kind of our identity gets swept up in such things.
It's true. Yeah.
So do you want to pull up some
Well,
of
should I?
the still images?
Yeah, I'll pull up some and we can keep talking while I do this. How's that?
That's
Okay.
perfect. And then another question I had was, you know, these are all portraits of anonymous women. Do you ever feel like any of them are self-portraits in a sense?
Yes and no. They're all self-portraits. You know? I mean, we've all been in this situation where, you know, we're depressed and it's better to go home and watch TV and eat popcorn than anything else. Some of them are, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm always overwhelmed by my books. So a lot of them are about that. And then some of them are also just about things that I would not do. Like I never bake, but a lot of women do. And so I wanted to do one that had to do with, you know, that obsession that we all have for a birthday party and want things to be so perfect, you know? So a lot of it is about that. This one is, you know, I wanted to do one about a pantry And so when I thought of a pantry, I realized it had to be Campbell's soup and, you know, make the little reference to Andy Warhol, etc. But it's always, you know, no matter what you look at in your cupboards, there's always too much or too little, it seems to me. So, you know, so in a way, are they self-portraits? Yes, always. I used to have a cat. This one was about, he's called Cat Lady, but, you know, it was kind of like, there's always a cat lady in the neighborhood. Cleaning, you know, the title of it is Cleaned Out. This one is kind of a new one. We needed some comic relief. That was the idea. And so, from all the news, etc. So that's, and this picture is the most popular picture of all, which is bizarre to me, but I guess not. But, you know, it's called Cooking the Goose.
It just feels like Thanksgiving, that if you're having friends and family over, everything's got to be perfect, and there's never enough time, and I don't know.
It's all going awry, right?
Of course. And then, of course, you're in the oven because,
right.
Or it feels that way. So
exactly.
I could see that. I feel like you said, in talking to different people, that people would say, oh, this one's me, this one's me. But I feel like there's something with the goose image that's kind of maybe more relatable to a larger audience. I don't know.
Yeah, there is something about that. This one actually is more personal because when I went off to college and came back my first year, and I came back at Thanksgiving, my mother had bought a dishwasher, which we had never had before. And I came back and I said, you bought a dishwasher? And she said, yeah, well, you went away. So, you know.
What else were they going to do?
Right, exactly. A gardener friend of mine just bought this picture, actually, which I think is hilarious. It's called Eden.
I can see that.
Yeah. And this one was like based on kind of the pandemic of like being alone and, you know, and painting the same painting over and over and over again to just get through the whole lockdown. I mean, we've all experienced dinner parties that have gone awry, but you know. This one was just like, you know, I feel like there's always too much furniture everywhere and it just gets to you. Anyway, so this one, I was really mad at Trump, and the whole golden throne thing was, you know, impetus for this. And she's very vain and shallow because there's nothing in her picture frames. Anyway, so each one has its own little, you know, story or narrative or situation from the home that might be disturbing or funny or overwhelming or something. I don't know why that one's big, but.
So the process of setting these up, this is not just not a still life in that you select some fruit and other objects and light it. How long does it usually take you to conceive of these and actually set them up? And I mean, that's got to be a whole process.
It is a whole process, and it takes usually, the shortest we've ever done it is a day. But that's because, and this one happened to be that because I had all the stuff and I brought it from our house in Indiana, and I set it all up, and I had a clear idea of what I wanted to do, and I had everything, and I didn't have to go out. But most of the time they take anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 days, because you'll get in the middle of a picture and then we don't have the right stuff. Or like this one, I ordered some mitts, but they didn't come. So then I had to make them, so there I am at the sewing machine making, oven mitts. So I know. So that's how it goes. And you'll get in the middle of something and it just, we had to rent a bathtub for this one and a sink.
Wow, I don't even know how you'd go about doing that.
Oh, it's not that hard. Well, that's because there's a place in Chicago that sells used sinks and appliances and
you can
cabinets and stuff.
rent them for a photo
We
shoot.
just go and raid. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of thrift store going too. All these plates are from thrift stores. This one we did it this June. I wanted to do something about Pride Month because nothing was happening for those Pride people this year. They were not celebrating. So this one was, we thought she should come out of the closet in this one.
That's great.
But like for instance, like this one, I had most of the stuff, except we had to get some colored hangers because otherwise it wouldn't have looked right. So
See, those are the little details, and you can look at these forever, and the hangers don't pop out right away.
Right.
But
Exactly.
that's where your design comes in. Whereas if they were I hadn't even thought about it. If they were just white hangers, it just wouldn't.
It would be really distracting.
It would, yeah.
Yes. So
what do you end up doing with a lot of these objects after? Are you now a collector of many props, or?
I have a garage full of junk, but I try and get rid of stuff. And as soon as I get rid of stuff, then, 2 pictures later, we need it. Right. So I keep a lot of the fabrics, but try and recycle furniture and, lamps and objects like that. These 2 chairs I brought from home and then just took them back. That was easy. This one was also the pandemic one because we covered everything in plastic. Mm-hmm. This one was easy. We did it around Halloween time and everybody got to go home with a bunch of pumpkins afterwards. But that's how it kind of goes. I have some friends that owned a drapery store in Chicago, and they would make custom drapery, and they just decided to go out of business. And so the fabrics in this one were all from them. They gave me this huge bolt of this beautiful fabric. So a lot of times I can, get things for free as well as, get rid of them afterwards.
Do friends end up giving you random things, just thinking, oh, I know who will use this?
Sometimes, yes, sometimes. And I've given artist talks to people who are my age or older, and a lot of them will say to me afterwards, please come to my house and take whatever. I'm trying to get rid of stuff.
I could see that. People are like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh,
I'm like, I don't want it either, really. I just want it for the picture.
Exactly. I'll borrow it for a day.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is just like, oh, I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry, this is sideways. I don't know how that happened.
We're both turning our heads.
Yeah. This one was called Getting Screened. Again, we made a screen, but it was the whole pun on getting screened for coronavirus. And this, of course, is the...
this is the print that comes with the book.
This is the print that comes with the book. And this one was kind of actually pretty interesting to make because we had to figure out how to get this shadow to work. It's for a simple picture, it was more complicated than you'd ever want to know.
Sometimes it's the simple ones that.
Yeah, exactly.
That way.
Exactly.
And then you're mostly working with mannequins, is that right?
Yes. When I was doing the drapery series, it was all real people behind the drapes, but these take so long to set up that I can't do it that way. So we're
Obviously.
constantly like making these mannequins do things that they're really not intended to do.
Imagine not.
And trying to make her look like she's a real person, you know, in spite of the fact that there are disparate parts all over. So anyway, this was my, you know, Midwestern one. This one was really fun because I found this bar, and then because we wanted to do a tiki bar, and then I took it to my brother and I said, here, this is for your back porch, and they love it. So it's a good way to get rid of things. Well, this is self-explanatory.
So everybody's been spending a lot more time at home recently,
Yes.
and it made me wonder, I mean, there's just kind of that idea of your home and your interior and just domestic spaces. Do you think your idea of domestic spaces has changed at all just since the pandemic started?
I certainly look at my space differently, you know, since now home is office and home and yoga studio and, you know, church and whatever you can, you know, whatever you happen to want to, and shopping, you know, and so it's kind of everything. But you know, if I only had my house to work on, I'd probably be changing it all the time. You know what I mean? I'd be like repainting it and stuff, but I have these pictures that I can make, so I get to make different spaces all the time in a way. I get to decorate to my heart's content.
You're constantly doing that, so probably the last thing you want to do is come home and repaint the
Right.
home and
Right. It's true. I have no desire. I come home, I cook dinner, and that's it. I just want to watch TV. Right. Or read a book.
yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you for joining us here. Is there anything you'd like to add or mention about this beautiful new book?
Hopefully, well, you guys at Photo Eye will be selling it with the print. Again, it's kind of new because nothing has happened with it yet. Ain't Bad has some, and that's kind of it. And it's impossible to go do book signings or, you know, events around it because we can't do events. But
Yeah.
I hope people will buy it and enjoy it.
Well, I think art and photo books and just creativity is more important than ever right now. Just in these strange times, just being able to delve into things like that. So lucky to be a creative person, but also for $40, you can have this book and you can bring it home every night and you can spend time with it and let it be transformative. Let it take you somewhere else. So I feel very, very blessed, I gotta say, to be in the business of art, always, but particularly in these times. So,
Me too. Not just blessed, but I feel like it saved my life.
yeah,
You know?
absolutely. So if we didn't know it was important before, we definitely
We
do
do now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hopefully everything gets less crazy soon and you can come down and check out our new gallery space. And I don't know if we've talked about finding a way to sign books or not, but at a minimum, we've got the little print with the book. And in the description, we'll include a link to buy the book. And then of course we also sell Patty's larger prints as well. So there'll be a link to that. So go to their website, check out the book, check out the prints. If you would like to discuss either with me, I'll have my contact information below as well. I'd love to tell you more about the work if you have any questions. If you've been collecting for a while, if you've never collected before and you're interested in it, I'm happy to provide you with any information that you'd like to have. So,
thank you, Anne. You know, one thing I wanted to say about the work is I hope that not just women, but particularly women, can relate to it, that the work is accessible enough, that it's not so kind of esoteric or anything, and that's really important for me. And that's why I hope people will really take it to heart and enjoy it. Thank you so much
and
for this.
as a woman, I definitely relate to the work, and I would assume men would as well. I don't, but in my personal experience, I definitely look through this book, and a lot of them really resonate with me on a personal level. So
Good.
yes. Well, thank you so much, Patty, and I will talk to you soon. And thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good night. Thank you.